Okay, so when you think about the birds of paradise, what comes to mind? Probably these incredible, almost psychedelic colors and these wild, elaborate dances, right? Well, today we're heading into the forests of New Guinea to meet this family of avian rock stars. But we're going to walk right past the lead singer to find the quiet one in the back. And that's really the big question we're diving into today. I mean, the bird of paradise family is just packed with these flamboyant, attention-grabbing characters. But what happens when you look past the spectacle? Who are the birds that don't need all that flash to make their mark? That, my friends, is where our story really begins.
All right, so let's set the scene. The family Paradisiidae, that's the scientific name, they almost all live in these super dense, remote forests in New Guinea. And honestly, they're kind of the peak of evolution when it comes to just pure visual spectacle. The males develop this mind-blowing plumage and these complex dance routines for one reason and one reason only: to impress a mate.
And the variety is just stunning. You've got the classic Paradisia with those famous flowing plumes. Then you have something that looks almost alien, like the King of Saxony with its crazy long head wires. But take a look at that last one, Drepanornis, the Sicklebill. Its most notable feature isn't about feathers or color, it's about the shape of its beak. So let's hit the pause button on all the Technicolor dancers for a second and really zero in on this more understated member of the family. We're zooming in on the genus Drepanornis, a bird that manages to stand out by, well, not trying so hard to stand out. And this really lays it all out. Instead of those iridescent blues and greens and reds, the Drepanornis is mostly just brown. And yep, like its cousins, it calls New Guinea home. But the one thing that truly defines it, the feature that gives it its name, is that incredible, long, curved bill. It's shaped exactly like a sickle. So really, what defines Drepanornis isn't what it's wearing, it's the tool it carries. While the rest of its family is famous for ornamentation, this bird is all about its highly specialized beak. It's a huge clue that this bird's story is way more about function than it is about fashion. So, a bird this unique, you might be wondering how many different kinds there are. Well, it turns out that this particular branch on the family tree is very, very small. Think of it as an extremely exclusive club. That's it. Just two. The entire genus of Drepanornis has only 2 known species. It makes them this really rare, really specialized pair inside this huge, flashy family of birds of paradise. And here they are, the 2 members of this very exclusive club. You've got the black-billed Sicklebill and the pale-billed Sicklebill. And just like their names suggest, the clearest, most obvious way to tell them apart is by the color of that signature feature, their bill. Now, you might think science is always cut and dried, but figuring out exactly where a creature fits in the grand scheme of things, it can get tricky. It's a giant puzzle, and for our Sicklebill, there's been a little bit of a debate about where it truly belongs. To put it in simple terms, the debate is basically this. Is Drepanornis its own distinct group, a true sibling, or is it really just a subgroup of another similar-looking genus of sicklebills called Epimachus, making them more like distant cousins? It's a real question of family identity. While the scientists who argue that Drepanornis is its own separate thing point to a couple of key clues. First off, the Drepanornis has a much shorter tail. And second, the visual difference between the males and the females, what we call sexual dimorphism, it's way less extreme than what you see in the Epimachus genus. So these subtle physical traits are the little pieces they use to solve this classification puzzle. And this is where the story gets really, really cool. For all the things we do know about its bill and its family tree, there is so much more that we don't know. The Sicklebill story is so far from being finished. And look, you don't have to take my word for it. This quote is pulled directly from the source material for this whole explainer. At the very bottom of the Wikipedia page, it tells you right there that the article is just a stub. Now, in the world of information, a stub isn't a dead end. It's an invitation. It's a big flashing sign that says, "More to discover here." It means the story is incomplete. For a creature as fascinating as the sicklebill, there are still whole chapters just waiting to be written. Chapters about what they actually do with that incredible bill, or what their courtship rituals are like without all the flashy colors of their cousins. So, let's just quickly tie this all together. We've seen that the bird of paradise family is this huge, diverse group of superstars. But among them, Drepanornis carves out its own niche, standing out with its tool, not its colors. We've learned that even figuring out where it belongs is a scientific puzzle. And maybe most importantly, we've realized that some of nature's greatest stories are still just getting started. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. The sicklebill is this perfect reminder to look beyond the obvious, you know? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In any group that's famous for its superstars, whether we're talking about birds or musicians or athletes, what other subtle, fascinating, and incredible stories are we missing, just waiting there to be discovered? Okay, so deep in the forests of New Guinea, there's a bird with a feature that is just truly remarkable. Its name is Drepanornis, and today we are going to figure out what makes it so incredibly special. So let's just jump right in with a bit of a puzzle. What kind of creature, tucked away in these super remote forests, is known for its long, curved, almost sickle-like bill? Well, if you're paying attention, you might guess the clue is right there in the name, Drepanornis. All right, let's pull back the curtain and officially meet the sicklebill bird. That name is pretty much the biggest clue to its most obvious and, frankly, coolest feature. So, Drepanornis is a genus, a type of bird found in the dense forests of New Guinea. And its name? It comes directly from that super distinctive bill that's shaped just like a sickle. It's the kind of feature you just can't miss. Okay, so we know it's a bird, it's from New Guinea, and it has this wild-looking bill, but that's only scratching the surface. Where exactly does it fit into the whole avian world? And here's the big reveal. Get this. Drepanornis is a type of the famous bird of paradise. You know, the birds known for their absolutely spectacular feathers and their really elaborate mating dances? So yeah, our sickle-billed friend here is part of a very, very glamorous family. And you don't just have to take my word for it. The science backs it all up. If you follow the classification down from the top, you land right on the family Paradiseidae. That's the fancy scientific name for birds of paradise. So there's absolutely no doubt about it. So, we've nailed it down. It's a bird of paradise from New Guinea with a sicklebill. Now let's get a little more specific and break down its key features. What really makes it tick? All right, so let's recap the main identifiers. First, its home turf, the forests of New Guinea. Second, that signature long curved bill we keep talking about. And third, and this is an interesting little detail, unlike some of its more flashy cousins, the Drepanornis has a more toned down, mostly brown plumage. You know, being part of a big family means you've got relatives, and sometimes things can get a little confusing. So how does Drepanornis actually stand apart, especially from the other sickle-billed birds of paradise? Well, the distinction is actually crystal clear when you put it side by side with its closest relative, the Epimachus genus. For one, Drepanornis birds have a much shorter tail.
Plus, the differences between the males and females, what scientists call sexual dimorphism, are way less extreme. These key differences are exactly why they get their own separate genus.
Now that we've kind of defined the genus as a whole, let's meet its members. How many different kinds of Drepanornis are actually out there? It's a very exclusive club. A really small one, actually. There are only 2 known species in the entire Drepanornis genus. Think of it like a tiny little branch on a massive family tree. And here they are. First up, we have the black-billed Sicklebill, or Drepanornis albertisi. And second, its counterpart, the pale-billed Sicklebill, Drepanornis bruijnii. And the main difference, as you might guess, is right there in the name. It's all about the color of that signature bill.
Okay, so we've been zoomed in pretty tight on these 2 specific birds. Now let's pull the camera back out and take a look at the incredible neighborhood they live in.
And it's really something to think about, the sheer scale of it all. These 2 species, as unique and cool as they are, represent just a tiny, tiny fraction of the immense diversity you find inside the Paradisiidae family.
I mean, just look at some of their relatives. You've got the dancing Parodia, the super elegant Astropia, the long-tailed Epimachus that we just met, and of course the iconic Paradisea. It is a truly spectacular and diverse family reunion.
And this is where our whole explainer takes a really fascinating turn. The source material for all of this information ends with a very telling sentence, a direct quote you see on the screen. This Paradisiidae-related article is a stub. Now, in the encyclopedia world, a stub basically means a short article that's just too brief to really cover the topic properly.
And that really brings us to our final and maybe most important point. The fact that the information on this genus is just a stub isn't a failure. It's actually an invitation. It tells us that even with everything we've just learned, there's so much more we don't know. It kind of leaves us with this big, exciting question. In those remote forests of New Guinea, what else about this hidden world is just out there, waiting to be discovered?